writing and promulgating the rule, and there were a lot of workshops, a lot of hearings, and the rule was published and went into effect on May 10th of this year. There were challenges filed to the language of the rule, and at the end of August, there was a decision on the challenges, and portions of the rule were struck down. So those of you that have been working in the field for a while, we're getting kind of used to this new normal of being in some limbo with our regulations and our statute and our rule. We are currently in a waiting game again. September 30th is when the challenge, what happened with the legal challenge, when it becomes official. That's when, if there is no appeal filed to the appellate decision, to the administrative law judge's decision, if there's no appeal filed, that will be official. The portions that the ALJ struck down will then be gone, and the rule as it currently exists will be in effect. So right now we're waiting at that point to see if there's an appeal filed. Does that kind of make sense to everybody?
Yeah.
So what I'm going to go over today is what is not in dispute, what's actually in effect right now. That was effective May 10th, okay? All right. So first of all, in some of the definitions, and this isn't everything, but these are the ones that are significant. These are the major changes. There was some changes to the language with anti-embolism stockings and hosiery. What do we call those in our? Thank you. I kind of got it in. I mean, I have a big mouth. I didn't see anyone raising their hand, so either they're hearing me or they just don't really care to. I'm betting my money on either one. All right, we okay?
Yes.
Outstanding. Okay. Our TED hose, anti-embolism stockings and hosiery, clarification on this is that this is prescribed. This is a prescribed treatment. What would we expect to see from this? An order from our physician, healthcare provider. Any of my providers ever had someone who just, like a resident who just chooses to wear the TED hose? Sometimes they like them because they don't slide down, or they want them for support. So when we're talking about that and about our staff being allowed to assist with that, we're referring to them, it's because it's prescribed. There's an order for that. There's a treatment with that. Assistance with transfer. This was defined and some clarification added to this as well to indicate that assistance with transfer does not mean total assistance by your facility staff to the resident. So give me an example of some equipment we probably don't want to see in the facility unless the resident is on hospice and there's a care plan. Hoyer left, thank you. I keep waiting for someone to say, go back and say, Laura Manville said a Hoyer lift is okay. No. Laura Manville said a Hoyer lift is durable medical equipment if the resident is on hospice and it's part of the interdisciplinary plan of care with the reason for it and staff training, that may be something that is allowable. But please do not give total assistance with your ALF residents, to your ALF residents by your staff, especially your unlicensed staff. Daycare participant is defined. Very complicated definition. You want to know what it is? Someone who's there for part of a day, less than 24 hours a day. So, okay, I'm going to keep going with this for right now. So, if someone is in your facility for daycare, are you allowed to have daycare participants under your ALF license without getting a daycare license? Under 429 Part 3, you are. A daycare means part of the day. Less than 24 hours. If they're spending the night there for a couple of days, what are they? Respite, or they're a resident. You have a licensed capacity, correct? All right. A glucose monitor or glucometer is defined. So is the language, there's language defined in your local fire safety authority. Nursing assessment, there was some clarifying language added to that, indicating that the provider who completes the nursing assessment has to have their names and their credentials on an assessment. Where's my nurses here? What level of nursing typically completes an assessment? An RN, very, very good. So we would expect to see when there's a nursing assessment that's spelling out nursing needs of a particular resident, we would expect to see the RN's name and their credentials signing the assessment. Questions on that? All right. Also have the definition of a pill organizer. Are unlicensed staff using pill organizers? No. Awesome. All right. Some clarification in the definitions related to universal precautions. All right, we're still working. And then that's it for the definitions. Now we're gonna go and talk about the admission procedures, appropriate placement, admission criteria, continued residency. So I'm gonna take you through this, and I may jump around a little bit because we have three types of license, three specialty licenses plus our standard license we're talking about. What are our specialties? ECC, LNS, LMH, and then we've got our standard license. So with an LNS, what do you have to have on staff or under contract? A nurse. Now with ECC, we've got our assessments that we just talked about with our assessments, with our nursing assessments. Who's completing those? Very good. So we've got nursing there. So when we're talking about this, there was some language added to this portion of the rule to try to add some clarification for a lot of the questions the agency gets about what is allowable or not allowable in our facility. So on this slide, it states, residents admitted to ALFs with standard LNS or LMH licenses may not require. I'm going to try to clarify this for you, and if I make it more confusing, I apologize in advance. But I'm doing this because, remember, ECC, their ECC admission and residency criteria has a separate portion of the rule. So I'm going to jump back and forth. Artificial airway management, except provided for the use of a CPAP or BiPAP machine. Okay, first of all, good news, CPAP and BiPAP is now referenced in the rule that is allowable in your facility. That is also not allowable in a facility with an ECC license. So ALFs, no artificial airway management, no trachs other than the use of CPAP or BiPAP. Assistance with tube feeding. You think that's allowable in any license, ALF licensure? No, we're talking about tube feeding. We're not talking about a peg tube. We're talking about tube feeding. Monitoring of blood gases. What do you guys think? Are we saying no? We're batting 1,000 so far. Same with ECC. Management of post-surgical drainage tubes and wound vacuum devices. Wound vac. No. Wound vac is no. Administration of blood products in the facility. No. All right. Now we already mentioned in ECC you can have the peg tube. However, anything where you're going to have that complex level of care, what if you're having someone from third party come in, or nursing is coordinating that peg tube? What do you think you need? You need orders. You need documentation. You need that care planning. You need that care coordination. Please remember, in a facility, especially when you've got unlicensed staff also interacting with your resident, who is still your resident, when you have these complicated issues, everything is great until things go south, right? All right. All right. Also, treatment of surgical incisions or wounds unless the incision or wound and underlying condition have been stabilized and a plan of care has been developed. The plan must be maintained in the resident's record. Again, things are going well, resident is stable, all of a sudden the family comes in, a resident suddenly declines, there's a problem. When your surveyors come in or the family's asking questions, do you want to have that documentation to show how the resident's care has been followed?